They have tried everything: sanctions, cyber attacks, political isolation, even targeted assassinations. But Iran continues to rise. It adapts, it responds. It never collapses. How can a country surrounded by pressure from all sides remain this unshaken? In today's video, we are diving deep into one of the most misunderstood and underestimated forces in modern geopolitics. You will discover the real reason why Iran remains undefeated, even when some of the world's most powerful nations have thrown everything at it. We will explore how Iran's unique strategies, some hidden in plain sight, have allowed it to outmaneuver the West again and again. This is not just about military strength. It is about psychological warfare, economic resistance, and a global chess game that Iran has mastered over decades. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you will understand why Iran is not just surviving, it is quietly reshaping the balance of power in ways most people never notice. We are going to talk about secret alliances, underground economies, strategic manipulation of global oil routes, and the real reason Iran's government has never been overthrown despite internal protests and foreign intervention. You will learn how Iran's Revolutionary Guard operates far beyond the battlefield, controlling businesses, media, and even foreign policy. You will discover why closing the Strait of Hormuz would send shockwaves across global markets within hours, and how Iran holds that power without ever using it. And we will reveal lesser-known details, like how Iran built an internal technological and scientific engine during years of isolation, quietly achieving breakthroughs while the world expected it to collapse. This is the story the mainstream headlines rarely tell. So why has Iran never been fully defeated by the West? Because Iran is not playing the same game. And once you see how it plays, everything starts to make sense. Welcome to our channel, where we uncover the hidden layers of global power and reveal the truths that others overlook. If you are interested in stories the world is not paying enough attention to, you are in the right place. Do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning. Centuries before the modern world knew it as Iran, this land was called Persia, a civilization that stood at the crossroads of empires. It was home to kings and poets, warriors and philosophers. The Persian Empire once stretched from the Aegean Sea to the Indus Valley, a symbol of power, culture, and endurance. It faced invasions from Greeks, Arabs, Mongols, and Turks, and each time it changed, but never disappeared. That deep-rooted history still pulses through Iran's national identity today, shaping how it views itself and the world around it. But the defining moment of modern Iran came in after years of political unrest, frustration with foreign interference, and growing resentment toward the West-backed monarchy. Millions of Iranians took to the streets. The result was the Islamic Revolution. It was not just a shift in power, it was a complete transformation. The Shah, once seen as the West's strongest ally in the region, was forced into exile. In his place came Ayatollah Khomeini, a religious leader whose rise shocked the global order overnight. Iran went from being a Western-backed monarchy to an Islamic republic, guided by a fierce ideology of independence and self-rule. From that moment, Iran became a problem the West could not solve. Its new leadership rejected the global systems dominated by Western powers. It nationalized its oil, challenged American influence, and turned its focus inward. But what followed was not peace. Within months, Iran faced severe sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and even a brutal 8-year war with Iraq, backed by the West. Cities were bombed. Chemical weapons were used. Tens of thousands died. Yet Iran did not fold. It built a war economy. It relied on its own scientists, engineers, and strategists. It taught a new generation that endurance was survival. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, pressure on Iran did not ease. Its nuclear program became the next battlefield, not with missiles but with negotiations, threats, and covert sabotage. Iranian scientists were assassinated. Nuclear sites were attacked. Sanctions crippled large parts of the economy. Still, Iran found ways to keep going. It strengthened its regional influence, often quietly, through networks and alliances that operated under the radar. It built relationships, not just with states, but with movements, some political, some militant, all of them loyal to Tehran's vision of resistance. This was not just about power, it was about defiance. The more Iran was isolated, the more self-sufficient it became. It developed its own universities, expanded its internal manufacturing, and built new defense systems without foreign help. From outside, the country looked boxed in, but inside something very different was happening. Iran was not collapsing, it was evolving. Iran does not fight like most nations. It does not rely on tanks rolling across borders or fleets dominating the seas. Instead, it fights in the shadows, calculated, patient, and difficult to counter. While global powers often focus on military strength in terms of numbers and hardware, Iran invests in influence, networks, and strategic positioning that stretch far beyond its borders. One of the most critical tools in Iran's arsenal is its use of proxy forces. These are not random militant groups. They are deeply connected, trained, and in many cases funded by Tehran. In Lebanon, Hezbollah is not just a political faction. It is a heavily armed organization with its own military command, capable of launching rockets and engaging in ground combat. It has become a powerful actor in the region, but its roots trace back to Iranian support in the early 1980s. Hezbollah's strength has grown over decades, and Iran's role in its rise is no secret. In Iraq, Iran has cultivated relationships with a wide range of militias. Some of these groups were formed during the fight against ISIS, but their loyalty did not end with the collapse of the so-called caliphate. These militias often act independently of the Iraqi state, but when Iran needs to send a message, whether to American forces or to local rivals, they act swiftly. Their presence blurs the line between national sovereignty and regional control, and Iran thrives in that gray space. Syria presents another layer of this complex web. During the Syrian civil war, when President Bashar al-Assad's regime was on the brink of collapse, Iran stepped in, not through a formal army but through fighters, advisors, and logistical support. Iran helped mobilize foreign Shia militias to enter the fight, ensuring that Damascus would not fall. This move expanded Iran's reach and cemented its presence in a country that borders both Israel and Iraq. The move was not loud, but it was highly effective. In Yemen, Iran's support for the Houthi movement has reshaped one of the world's most tragic and complex conflicts. Though geographically distant from Iran, the Houthis serve as another pressure point, especially against Saudi Arabia, a key Western ally. The group has gained access to advanced weaponry, including drones and missiles, many believed to be linked back to Iran. With minimal direct involvement, Iran has extended its strategic depth thousands of kilometers beyond its own borders. This is not a traditional form of warfare. It is layered, indirect, and built on long-term alliances. Iran understands that it does not need to match its enemies tank for tank or plane for plane. Instead, it surrounds them quietly, persistently, and often without ever firing a shot itself. Stretching between the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea lies a narrow strip of water just 21 miles wide at its tightest point. This is the Strait of Hormuz. On one side sits Iran, and on the other some of the world's biggest oil producers. Each day, nearly a fifth of the planet's oil supply moves through this narrow route. That is millions of barrels, flowing past tankers, escorted by warships, under constant surveillance. Few places on Earth carry more economic tension in such a small space. Iran's geographic position gives it a unique advantage. It does not need to travel far to assert pressure. The coastline of Iran bends around the strait like a watchful eye. From land, from sea, and even from hidden islands, Iran has built a dense network of surveillance and defense. It does not need a massive navy. It relies on fast, agile speedboats, submarines, anti-ship missiles, and underwater mines. These are tools of disruption, not destruction. Their purpose is not to start a war, but to make any attack deeply costly. Over the years, Iran has tested the waters, sometimes literally. It has harassed oil tankers, seized ships, and conducted drills where speedboats swarm like hornets. Western navies have responded with carrier groups and constant patrols, but the threat remains. It is not about constant action. It is about the knowledge that Iran could at any moment disrupt the global oil trade. What makes this situation even more complex is how easily the impact spreads. Oil markets are sensitive. Prices respond not just to attacks, but to threats, rumors, and drills. A single missile launch or a tanker delay can send global prices soaring. This kind of leverage is not measured in troops or missiles. It is measured in time, trade, and uncertainty. And Iran understands that perfectly. The placement of radar stations, missile batteries, and mobile launchers along Iran's southern coast is not random. It is part of a long-developed strategy called area denial. In simple terms, it means making the cost of military action so high that no one dares to strike first. Even global powers with advanced fleets think twice before provoking a conflict here. While the world watches nuclear sites and diplomatic talks, Iran quietly maintains its grip on this vital choke point. It knows the Strait of Hormuz is not just a waterway. It is a trigger, one that if pulled, could send shockwaves through economies far beyond the region. Without firing a shot, Iran holds the power to shake the foundations of global trade. When waves of Western sanctions began hitting Iran after the revolution, and especially during the nuclear standoff, the goal was clear: economic collapse. Entire sectors were targeted: oil exports, banking systems, access to international markets. Major companies pulled out, trade routes were blocked, inflation rose, and the local currency plummeted. For most countries, such pressure would have caused a breakdown in governance, or even a change in leadership. But Iran took a different path, one that turned crisis into strategy. Faced with growing isolation, Iran introduced a concept that became central to its survival: the resistance economy. It was more than a slogan. It was a framework for transforming the country from the inside out. The idea was to become less dependent on foreign imports, to grow what could not be bought, and to build what could not be imported. From car parts to medicine, Iran began encouraging domestic production. At every level, universities and research institutions became vital parts of this shift. Iranian scientists, engineers, and students were pushed to develop solutions in areas where foreign support was suddenly cut off. In some fields, like nanotechnology and biotechnology, Iran made significant advancements. The country began developing its own medical equipment, industrial machines, and agricultural innovations, driven not by competition, but by necessity. In agriculture, the story was the same. With food imports restricted or heavily taxed due to sanctions, Iran expanded its local farming system. It invested in irrigation, seed production, and food processing industries. Dry climates and limited water did not stop this effort. Instead, they shaped a new approach, one based on long-term sustainability and self-reliance. The defense sector also underwent transformation. Unable to purchase modern weapon systems from abroad, Iran began manufacturing its own. It produced drones, missiles, radar systems, and even submarines. While critics often questioned their quality, the fact remained: Iran was building a defense network, largely free from foreign dependency. It no longer had to rely on others for basic military capabilities. Every weapon it produced sent a message: resistance is not just about protest, it is about production. Private businesses also adjusted. Small and medium-sized enterprises started creating alternatives to banned or limited products. Entrepreneurs filled gaps left by Western brands. While the sanctions hurt in the short term, they unintentionally created a breeding ground for local innovation and internal competition. Across every sector, from science to farming, from energy to medicine, Iran built an economy that did not wait for the world to welcome it back. It kept moving, with or without access to global markets. In place of foreign partnerships, it leaned on its people, its knowledge, and its will to adapt. Power in Iran does not flow from a single source. It is not held only by elected officials or religious leaders. There is another force, one deeply rooted in both ideology and influence. It is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, often simply called the Revolutionary Guard. Born in the early days of the 1979 revolution, this group was never just another branch of the military. From the start, it was built to protect the revolution itself, not merely the borders of the country. The Revolutionary Guard began as a paramilitary force, loyal to Ayatollah Khomeini, and tasked with defending the new Islamic Republic against internal and external threats. Over time, its role expanded far beyond combat. Today, the Guard operates as a parallel power structure, deeply embedded in nearly every aspect of Iranian life. It has its own army, navy, and air force. It controls intelligence services and special operations units, but its reach goes much further than traditional military limits. In the economic sphere, the Revolutionary Guard controls a vast network of businesses, many of them under the names of seemingly independent companies. These include construction firms, telecommunications providers, oil and gas enterprises, and even some of the largest infrastructure projects in Iran, from highways to dams, have been carried out by entities linked to the Guard. Through these ventures, the Guard generates immense revenue, reinforcing its independence and strengthening its grip on the country. The influence also extends into media. Television channels, newspapers, and social media campaigns are often shaped by narratives supported or even crafted by the Revolutionary Guard. Their messaging promotes loyalty to the Islamic system, resistance against the West, and pride in national achievements. Control over media allows the Guard to shape public opinion and maintain a narrative that aligns with the state's goals. Even the education system is not untouched. Members of the Revolutionary Guard have a presence in universities and schools, whether through official programs, student organizations, or ideological training. They play a role in teaching the next generation about the values of the revolution, the threat of foreign enemies, and the importance of national unity. It is not simply about spreading ideas, it is about embedding those ideas into the structure of daily life. Their loyalty does not shift with political tides. It is tied to the foundation of the Islamic Republic itself. While presidents may come and go, the Guard remains. Its commitment is not to individuals, but to the system, the ideology, and the revolution that brought it into existence. It is a force that answers not just to command, but to conviction. Iran does not seek to rule the world. Its leadership is not driven by visions of global conquest or territorial expansion. The goal is something more focused,
more calculated, survive. Every decision it makes, every alliance it forms, every moment of confrontation or restraint is tied to the need to preserve the Islamic Republic and protect its sovereignty. For over 4 decades, Iran has faced threats on multiple fronts. Military bases surround it. Foreign powers impose harsh sanctions. Regional rivals fund opposition forces. Yet through it all, Iran has endured. It does not do this by reacting emotionally or rushing into open conflict. Instead, it carefully reads the moment. When pressure builds, it responds, sometimes with defiance, other times with diplomacy. It sends signals through back channels, balances risk, and calculates the cost of every step. This balance between resistance and negotiation is at the heart of Iran's strategy. At times, Iran raises tensions by testing missiles, enriching uranium, or confronting foreign ships. At other moments, it sits at the table with international powers, offering just enough cooperation to ease pressure without surrendering core interests. This ability to shift between confrontation and compromise has helped Iran avoid direct war, even when tensions seemed on the edge of explosion. Strategic partnerships play a central role in Iran's long-term survival plan. While it remains isolated from the West, it has steadily built ties with major global powers outside of that circle. Russia offers military cooperation, including air defense systems and intelligence sharing. China provides vital economic support, investing in infrastructure and signing long-term trade deals that give Iran a lifeline when Western markets are closed. These partnerships are not just about trade or technology. They serve a deeper purpose. They offer Iran protection through balance, linking its future to other powers that can challenge Western influence. These alliances are not flashy. They are built over time through quiet agreements, shared interest, and a common resistance to foreign pressure. Iran also invests in regional relationships that may not make international headlines, but matter just as much. From Central Asia to Latin America, Iran finds common ground with nations that feel sidelined by global systems, dominated by a few powerful states. Through diplomacy, energy cooperation, and cultural exchange, Iran weaves a web of connections that shield it from isolation. Everything Iran does on the international stage reflects a long view. There are no quick moves, no desire for short-term victory. Its strength lies in patience, in knowing when to step forward and when to step back. Survival for Iran is not just about holding on, it is about lasting longer than the pressure. The West often misreads Iran not because of lack of intelligence, but because of a deeper cultural blind spot. Western nations tend to equate power with visible force, jets in the sky, sanctions in place, and diplomatic ultimatums. They imagine change happening through swift shocks, military intervention, regime pressure, economic collapse. But Iran doesn't play that kind of game. Its strength doesn't come from matching the West bomb for bomb or dollar for dollar. Its strength lies somewhere else, somewhere slower, somewhere deeper. Iran has mastered the art of endurance. Every time pressure is applied, it doesn't fracture, it hardens. Unlike many nations that buckle under the weight of economic warfare or international isolation, Iran restructures internally. Its institutions adapt, its people conditioned by decades of sanctions and hostility learn to live with less, to work around blockades, to innovate under strain. It's not a reaction of defiance alone. It's a built-in mechanism. The system was designed to withstand siege, not just survive it, but emerge more resilient. And this is where the West often miscalculates. because for them the absence of immediate reaction seems like weakness. But for Iran, silence is a weapon, slowness is a tactic. While governments change rapidly in other places, Iran's leadership has focused on long-term ideological stability. The people may struggle, but they are shaped through that struggle. Schools, media, and institutions have all been geared to reinforce the narrative of resistance. This isn't just about politics, it's about identity. The national story is one of being surrounded, outnumbered, underestimated, and still stand. When Iran is provoked, it doesn't retaliate with televised force. It moves in the shadows, strategically, indirectly, and always with plausible deniability. This is how it operates across the Middle East, by shaping the environment through influence rather than invasion. This patience is not weakness, it's calculation. It allows Iran to shift outcomes over time, not in moments. The West may have more firepower, but Iran has more time. It doesn't chase victory, it cultivates condition. And while banks and bombs dominate Western definitions of dominance, Iran uses memory and momentum. It remembers every betrayal, it studies every tactic, it learns from every mistake, and it holds on to every gain no matter how small. The West may overlook these moves because they don't show up on the front pages, but over years, they build something formidable, a system that doesn't just fight to win, but fights to exist, to last, to never be broken from within. And in that quiet durability lies its real power. Iran's nuclear program has long been a source of global tension, not just because of what it might become, but because of what it already represents: leverage. Unlike other nations that openly declare their nuclear intentions, Iran plays the shadow game. It doesn't say it wants a bomb. It doesn't say it doesn't. Instead, it dances at the edges, at the edge of possibility, advancing its capabilities just enough to keep everyone, especially the West, on edge. And that calculated ambiguity isn't an accident, it's a strategy, one that's rooted in decades of survivalist thinking. This isn't about threatening outright destruction, it's about projecting enough potential to demand a seat at the table. Iran's nuclear posture is less about explosions and more about influence. It develops centrifuges, it refines uranium, it builds hardened facilities buried deep underground, all while denying weaponization goals. And yet every technical advancement sends ripples across global capitals. Sanctions are debated, diplomatic channels are opened, military options are quietly reviewed, all because Iran has mastered the art of keeping the world uncertain. That uncertainty is the point. The world doesn't react as strongly to clarity, but the unknown. That's where anxiety lives, and Iran plays to that anxiety expertly. It uses technical progress like a liver, a new development here, a delayed inspection there. It's not chaos, it's choreography. Every move calibrated, every reaction measured. While Washington, London, and Brussels argue over timelines and compliance, Tehran watches, listens, adjusts. The nuclear question gives Iran a kind of presence it otherwise might not command. It transforms it from a regional player into a global one. It forces powers that would rather isolate it instead engage with it, because even the possibility of a nuclear Iran is enough to shift strategy in war rooms far away from the Middle East. Meanwhile, Iran doesn't stand alone. Its nuclear ambiguity is paired with careful international alignment. It signals to Russia, it coordinates with China, not in overt flag-waving alliances, but in shared resistance to Western pressure. That solidarity strengthens its position even further. And when negotiations do happen, When deals like the JCPOA are signed or fall apart, Iran gains insight into the West's red lines, into what it values most, into what it fears. That intelligence becomes another form of power, because in geopolitics, knowing your opponent is half the battle. Iran knows this, and so it continues its quiet, steady march, not toward a weapon, necessarily, but toward something just as potent, the power to make the world listen, whether it wants to or not. They've tried bombs, they've tried sanctions, they've tried isolation, pressure, cyber warfare, diplomatic encirclement, but Iran still stands, unmoved, unbroken, and unyielding. The reason: you can't bomb a mindset, you can't sanction national pride, and you certainly can't defeat a country that has rooted its power, not in flashy displays or global approval, but in something deeper: strategy, patience, and a historical memory, longer than most empires. Last, Iran doesn't win by overpowering, it wins by outlasting. This isn't just about governments or leaders, this is cultural, generational. Iranians grow up knowing the history of Persepolis, of empires that came and went. They know foreign intervention all too well, from the 1953 CIA-backed coup to the long war with Iraq in the 1980s, funded by powers who now preach democracy. These memories don't fade, they fuel, they inform, they harden the national psyche. And Iran's strength doesn't come from one central piece, it's a web. Its strategy stretches across multiple fronts: military, economic, psychological. The Revolutionary Guard isn't just a military force, it's a parallel state. It controls ports, construction firms, telecoms, and ideology. Its militias across the region are not just proxies, they're buffers, pressure points, and warning flares. If conflict arises, Iran doesn't need to engage, it can shift the battle lines far from its own borders. That's not luck, that's design. Add to that its resilience. Sanctions have cut off banking, restricted oil exports, and made basic supplies more expensive. But rather than collapse, Iran adapted. It learned to work around global financial systems. It fostered local production. It endured, not quietly, but effectively. Every time the world tightened the noose, Iran adjusted its footing and waited. That kind of resilience isn't reactive, it's trained, and patience, perhaps the rarest currency in geopolitics, is one of Iran's richest resources. While other nations move fast and react to public pressure or election cycles, Iran thinks in decades. It doesn't need instant wins. It watches, it builds recessions where others see threats. With China, Iran has inked long-term cooperation deals. With Russia, it has found common cause in challenging. These are not flashy alliances, they're functional ones, built for staying power, not headlines. Iran's survival is proof of a principle. Power is not always loud, sometimes it's silent. It doesn't need approval, it needs endurance. It doesn't collapse under isolation, it adapts, and that's why it can't be defeated in the traditional sense, because it's not just about missiles or border, it's about belief, strategy, and a nation that has already withstood every tool used to break it, and still refuses to bow. Iran doesn't just survive, it outlasts, and that is something the West still doesn't fully understand. If this gave you a new perspective, like the video to support this kind of content, and subscribe to our channel, because stories like this aren't just history, they're still unfolding.